This is the Cupra Formentor. Now, what is a Cupra Formentor, you might be asking? For those who don't know, Cupra used to be the performance division of Spanish brand Seat. Much like BMW has M and Mercedes has AMG, Seat had Cupra. It would produce sportier versions of its core models, and it continues to do so, but now Cupra is moving aside to become a brand in its own right. It will still produce models like the Cupra Ateca and the Cupra Leon, which are variants of traditional Seat models, but it also now has this, the Formentor. It's a unique body design that's exclusive to Cupra, and it will come as a 1.5 litre TSI petrol engine, and then as this more powerful 310 horsepower all-wheel drive powered by a 2 litre petrol engine. Now, if you remember the original concept, you'll see that this has remained remarkably true to that. In fact, it's very, very good looking. Now, it does have quite a distinctive front end to it, particularly with this large grille and this huge badge. Now, not everyone is convinced about this badge. I think it looks like something from the Transformers or from a video game, but get used to it because we're going to see a lot more models carrying this badge in future. But badge aside, this is a car that's turned a lot of heads while we've had it. Probably because it's a little bit different looking and people aren't quite sure what it is, but the satin grey finish really stands out, these sharp headlights, and also even stuff like the copper inserts on the wheels and, well, just the overall proportions of this car. You see, this is a car that looks actually smaller than you would think when you see it up close. It's actually quite a compact design, even though it is a 5-seat crossover. These really sharp creases are very much like what we see on modern Seats, but it gives the car a real sense of haunches here on the rear, and the roofline comes gradually down all the way, giving it, well, I don't want to say a coupe-like appearance, but it certainly reduces the mass of the car. You still have decent size rear windows, so this isn't a car that you're going to feel very claustrophobic sitting in the back of. And, you know, even on 19-inch wheels, it actually looks pretty well proportioned. It's got quite a long wheelbase, and that adds a little bit more stability to the car, especially in faster corners. And you've got this glossy finish along the bottom. Normally on a crossover like this, these are black, but on this model, they're actually painted grey. And, well, it just brings the car a little bit lower down, adds a little bit more to that sporty feeling. Inside the Cupra, it is familiar if you've been in any of the latest Seat models. Naturally, to keep costs down, there's a lot of crossover and carryover of parts, but these are all good things. It has the DSG shift-by-wire transmission, which means it now has this little nub for a gear selector, frees up a little bit more space around here. You have your park button here, your electric handbrake, your auto hold, and your central locking button, all neatly put in here. It sits quite flush, doesn't take up that much room. You've got 2 cup holders here, 2 different sizes, and there's storage here underneath the center armrest. Ahead of that gear selector, you have a wireless charging pad in this car, which is neatly angled, and once you've got some kind of cover on your phone, it does actually stop it from sliding around. That's kind of handy. There is also 2 USB-C ports sat above that as well, so if you do need to plug in or somebody besides you needs to also charge their phone, you can do it that way. The wireless charging pad does also mean that you've got wireless Apple CarPlay. That's quite a useful feature, and on this large 12-inch touchscreen really does add to the upmarket feel that this car has. It's very nice, very easy to use. Now, this 12-inch touchscreen display looks really, really impressive. It is a little bit angled towards the driver, but it's still very easy for the passenger to use as well. Of all of the infotainment systems that have come out in recent Volkswagen Group product, we think that the Seat version is one of the best ones. It seems to be the least buggy, and it seems to be a little bit more intuitive to use. It's quite nice. You've always got these shortcut buttons along the bottom, so if you want to access the car functions, you can do that. Similarly, if you want to go towards your Apple CarPlay or any of those sort of functions, it's very easy to use. It's quite intuitive. So no real issues in that respect. It does have a capacitive bar runs along the bottom that's divided into 3 sections. So the 2 outer sections are for adjusting the temperature controls for both the front occupants, and then in the middle you have a volume control that you can slide up or down. If you don't want to use that, you do still have multifunction steering wheel, and that does have volume control as well as some of the other features. Now the steering wheel is actually quite a nice addition to the Cupra because it has two additional buttons here. So it has your engine start button and it has a Cupra button on the left, and this Cupra symbol effectively lets you jump through the different drive modes that this car has, and there's quite a few actually that you can go through. So obviously you can have it in your off-road mode, or you can have it in a comfort mode for driving. Interestingly, if you do go into an off-road mode, for example, it does automatically turn on your hill descent control as well, so it always changes everything around. If you do go into the Cupra mode, and for example if you want to go on the track, you do have a nice big ESC off button here as well that you can very quickly activate. The other functions then as well, you can control this multi-function display here. It's a 10.2 inch screen, much like what we see in various other Seat and Volkswagen Group products. It's very easy to see, it's clearly laid out. You can have a number of different views, so if you want to have, for example, just a large tachometer with a speedo in the center, you can do that. You can have two separate ones, and you can also then have a more digital display. So there's quite a lot of options there. It's quite nice to have that little bit of functionality. All the graphics look pretty good, almost irrespective of which display you have. It's very easy to see what's going on. Now, when you are driving in a little bit of a sportier mode, you will appreciate these sport seats. They're actually really comfortable. They're not very hard, and they do support you in all the right places. I'm about 5'9", and I've got plenty of room. It's not pinching me here. I've got really good amounts of headroom in the front as well, and the visibility throughout is really good. One other feature that's really neat that I quite like is that when you do start up the car, you do have this light that runs all the way around, and these do two functions. Obviously it's a nice ambient lighting to have, but also this will illuminate here to give you a blind spot warning. It's a really nice touch. It's a really good way of integrating a safety system into the car, and it just adds to the sense of quality, particularly even at night when you're driving. It's not too glary, it's not in your face, and I think Cupra overall have done a really nice job in the little bit of differences that they've added into this car, just to make it stand out. And it certainly is a step above in terms of quality and what some people might have expected from this. Yes, there is a couple of, some scratchy plastics in bits, but for the most part, all of the main touch points that you're going to be in contact with, like the steering wheel has a perforated leather here along the sides. It's flat bottomed. The large touch screen is really nice and easy to use, and it has it's not fully gloss finish, so it's not exactly a fingerprint magnet, which is good. But other things like this copper stitching along here, the copper theme, some people might not like it, but that's effectively the Cupra corporate colors. So that's just what comes with the car. But yeah, overall the materials inside are for the most part quite good. Sitting in the back here is, well, it's quite surprising actually how much room I have. I've got loads of headroom, so I'm about 5'9", and I've no issue at all with headroom. And I've got this driving seat itself for how I would normally be when I'm driving the car, and I've got loads of knee room in here as well, so that's really good. And even though it has this sloping roofline that you've seen from the outside, I've got a good size window so I can see out very clearly. I don't feel like I'm sitting especially low in the car, so yeah, it's pretty good. There is a little bit of a transmission tunnel, but it's actually not that bad. So even sitting in this middle seat, you're not going to feel all that hard done by. You have climate controls here, so you have two vents, you can adjust that. There's two USB-C ports, and you've also got some netting here in the back. You've got climate control here, two USB-C ports. You've got a pouch in the back of the front seats so you can stick your devices in there, and as ever you've got a fold down armrest, two cup holders. There's a ski hatch there so you can access the boot, and you've got two mounting points in the two outer seats for child seats, and the front seat can also take one that has a top tether mount as well. Yeah, but overall this is very good back here. Along with an electrically opening tailgate, the Cupra does have pretty good boot space for its class. The aperture is quite wide and the boot floor isn't that low. You can also increase overall volume by folding the rear seats, which have a 60-40 split. Even in this horrible day outside, it's very easy to see just how well balanced and how composed the Cupra Formentor is. The all-wheel drive system gives you quite a lot of security, particularly on these wet roads, and through these faster corners it holds its line very well. There's plenty of performance, although what I would say is that the engine is, well, it's slightly lacking in torque at times. It's got plenty of power, 310 horsepower as I mentioned, and indeed from a standing start it can hit 100 kilometers an hour in just under 5 seconds. It's quick by any stretch of the imagination, but well, you just kind of feel that with a car like this you would like if it had a little bit of a harder edge to it, if it was just that little bit more zany. I suppose is a good way to be. In the comfort modes, obviously it's not changing gears quite as quickly, but you can put it into a sport version for the transmission if you do want to have a little bit of if you want it to hold on to gears for a little bit longer. And for the most part it's actually quite civilized. It's not it's not rough, it's firm. Certainly the suspension does have a firm setup to it, but it's not a bone shaker, it's not uncomfortable. Even like these roads that we're on, they're not especially good roads, but even on 19-inch wheels it's not banging through the cabin. It's doing everything what you would expect, I guess, a sporty crossover to behave like. Now when you want to have a bit more fun, then you switch into the Cupra mode. You get a bit more sound coming through the cabin. The steering has, you need to put a little bit more effort in. Thankfully it doesn't feel overly artificially weighted. You don't feel like you're having to work against it. It just gives a little bit more of a, you've got to be a bit more focused about your inputs and what you're doing. As I said, the ride is really good on it for a crossover. There's no real amount of body roll to talk of, so in that respect it gives you a bit more confidence to push on through the corners. You don't feel like you're going to get a little bit of pitch and roll that might sort of upset the line or cause it to run wide a bit. And yeah, it's kind of good fun. You do, if you want to get the most out of the transmission, you do need to start using paddles, and shift manually. The gear changes come lightning quick. There's no real sort of fuss there, and actually, it seems to be a little bit happier to be on the higher revs as well. Sometimes in some of these DSG cars, when you do go and pull a downshift, it might go, no, I don't really like that, but it seems a little bit more willing in this sense. Now, if I'm honest, you're probably not always going to be driving this car in its Cupra mode. It's really for, when you hit your favorite road or a good back road and you want to have a bit of fun, you can do that. But the nice thing is it's very easy and quick. As soon as you just press the thumb button again, it just changes the mode of the car, the characteristics of the car change. That artificial engine sound dulls away. It becomes a lot more civilized. It becomes very normal once more, and I think that's what people will like about this car, is that it does it's a little bit sporty, it's a bit of fun, but it's not a total sort of hot hatch all the time. When it's in its normal modes, well, it drives remarkably normally. It's quite compliant even over bumps. It's only really the really harsh bumps that tend to jar through the cabin a little bit. For the most part, it soaks all that stuff up quite well. There's decent amounts of sound insulation actually. You don't get a lot of road noise resonating through the cabin, which is something that can happen, especially with a lot of these SUVs when they get onto these larger wheels. This car is running on 19s and I've no real complaints. It's actually better than some of the more premium rivals that we've experienced, like Mercedes and things like that. This is actually a little bit quieter, a bit more refined in that respect. The transmission, as I said, once it goes back into its default normal drive mode, it changes gears very smoothly. It's fine in that respect. And the steering, when it is just a little bit lighter again, It's very, very nice. It's actually got a great turning circle. I realised when I was leaving the house this morning, I had to do a little bit of a U-turn, and it's actually got quite a good turning circle, even though it has a relatively long wheelbase. So yeah, the Cupra, well, it's easy to look at this car and see it as something a bit cynical and, oh, it's just a rebadged Seat. And yes, look, there's a lot of Seat bits in that, but there's also, when you pop the bonnet, you'll see there's quite a few parts that have 4 rings stamped on as well. So it's not all that bad having some part sharing going on between these cars. The fact that it has a unique body style, so this isn't just another Seat with a different badge on it. You're only, you can only get a Cupra Formentor, that's it. It's not going to be a Seat Formentor or anything else in that respect. And I think overall the looks, they kind of grow on me. I'm not totally sold on the satin grey paint. I think after a while, I think I might get a bit bored with it. I would like to see it in some more traditional paint colours. But if you want something that's a bit different, that stands out from the crowd, you still need or want the practicality of what a crossover offers, this does a very good job, I have to say. Okay, this Cupra all-wheel drive version with the 310 horsepower, it's going to be in Ireland 63,000 euros. It's quite a lot of money. But if you don't need or don't want all that 310 horsepower, well, the 1.5 litre TSI version could end up costing close to half that. So yeah, get that one if you want to have the looks, you want to have the charm, the uniqueness of it. That's going to be the one to have. I think if you want to have all-wheel drive and rapid performance and you need space, okay, you're going to have to spend a little bit more. Well, actually, you're going to have to spend a lot more if you want to have a 310 horsepower Cupra. Most people won't buy this car. They'll probably buy the 1.5 litre. And for the most part, having driven that engine in other cars, it's a peach of an engine. I don't think you'd be that disappointed with it. And you'd be able to live without the lack of the extra 150 or so horsepower. So that's our first drive review of the Cupra Formentor. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please do give the video a thumbs up. But more importantly, tell us what you think about this car. Get involved in the comments below and let us know whether you think this is a good thing that this car is now on sale, and maybe you'd prefer this over something else. Well, what would you prefer it over? Tell us in the comments. If you don't already, please do consider hitting the subscribe button and subscribing to the channel. That way you'll see more of our videos. And if you do already subscribe, thank you. We really do appreciate all the support that we get here. If you want to know more about the Cupra Formentor and all of its rivals, we have detailed reviews of those all on our website, which is CompleteCar.ie. So head along to the website, you'll find loads more information there. Thanks for watching.